Hello, and welcome back to History Untold tonight. We begin a journey through time to discover if medieval people believed the earth was flat. When I think of the Middle Ages, I imagine myself walking along the winding cobbled streets, perhaps through a bustling market square, the scent of fresh bread and spices in the air, or sitting in a candlelit hall listening to a traveling bard. Maybe I'd even visit a quiet monastery and wander through its hushed stone cloisters. The scent of vellum and beeswax, the flickering light of candles in irons. But did medieval people believe the earth was flat? The idea that they did is one of the most persistent myths about the Middle Ages, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Over the next few minutes, we'll uncover the real beliefs of medieval scholars, monks, and even nobles about the shape of the earth. We'll see how they mapped the world, how they explained the seasons, and what they really thought about the heavens above. So allow your breath to soften, feel the gentle weight of your blanket across your body, and let us begin our first segment together. Imagine yourself waking in a small medieval town just before dawn. The air is crisp and quiet, scented faintly with wood smoke and damp earth. Outside your shuttered window, you hear the first muted sounds of life. A rooster calling somewhere in the distance, the shuffling of early risers moving along the rough dirt street, and the soft, metallic chime of a blacksmith opening his forge for the day. You rise slowly from your straw-stuffed mattress, feeling the smooth, worn wooden floor beneath your feet. The small room is dim, lit only by the first pale hints of morning light filtering through thin linen curtains. In the hearth, last night's embers glow faintly, casting a subtle warmth into the cool room. The scent is a blend of charred oak, old wool blankets, and the faint sweetness of dried lavender bundles hung to deter insects. Stepping outside, you see your neighbors beginning their quiet routines. A woman ladles water from a barrel into a clay pitcher, steam rising from her breath into the crisp air. An apprentice sweeps the threshold of his master's shop, his broom making soft rhythmic whispers against the wooden boards. The baker carries a heavy tray of risen dough to his stone oven, the yeasty aroma mingling with the smoky dawn breeze. Above them, the sky brightens from deep navy to slate gray, and tiny stars fade one by one into the coming light. Despite the common modern belief that medieval people thought the earth was flat, here, in the calm order of their world, their understanding of the heavens was more nuanced than most realize. Here's another medieval history hot tip for your consideration. Before we begin, a quick reminder to like this video and subscribe for more. Also, if you enjoy learning historical facts, you might also enjoy our podcasts available on various platforms. The year is 1480 and you find yourself wandering the quiet streets of a small medieval town. The sun has risen fully now, painting the sky in hues of pale blue and rose. Birds chirp merrily from rooftop nests, their songs mingling with the growing din of market life. You pass a group of children playing a lively game of jacks, their laughter echoing brightly in the narrow street. A dog barks once, twice, then falls silent as the children run on, heedless of his yaps. Further down the road, a young mother cradling a babe in swaddling looks up as you pass, murmuring a greeting. Her child gurgles happily from its blanket, chubby hands waving at the passing scene. A butcher hooks a side of beef to his stall, the crimson meat gleaming moistly in the sunlight. Nearby, a pile of freshly turned earth sits waiting for a new planting. You pause, noticing the neat furrow lines, the promise of future growth held within the dark soil. From somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings slowly, steadily. It's toneful and resonant. It speaks of an ancient faith, deeply ingrained in the fabric of daily life here. Around you, people go about their tasks, heads bent in concentration, voices low and steady in conversation. Here life is measured by the rising and setting of the sun, by the changing seasons, by the rhythms of the natural world. There is little fear of falling off the edge of the flat earth, for these people live within a world that is small, comprehensible, and governed by the steady laws of nature and God. They are part of it, sustained by it, and in turn sustain themselves from it. They exist in harmony with the land, with each other, and with the heavens above. If you were to ask them about the shape of the world, they would likely describe a place where the earth is adorned with many waters, surrounded by firmament and encircled by the sun and moon. To them, the heavens are not a simple dome, but rather a series of rotating crystalline spheres, each holding the fixed stars in their proper place. They understand the order of the cosmos as revealed by scholars like Ptolemy, whose work was carried to them across fragile paths of trade and pilgrimage. To think otherwise would be to deny the very structure of creation, to question the order established by God himself. Now, let us delve deeper into this fascinating topic. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit that like button and subscribe for more engaging history content. And if you love history as much as we do, don't forget to check out our podcast available on various platforms. Let us transport ourselves back to the heart of a bustling medieval town square. Here, in the center of town life, stands a well, its sides worn, smoothed by countless hands drawing water over the years. Nearby, two young men stand engaged in animated conversation. Their clothes are simple, their faces tanned and weathered from working outdoors. They speak with quiet intensity, gesturing with hands calloused from honest labor. These men, like many others of their time, have witnessed firsthand the evidence of a spherical Earth. They have sailed, traveled extensively by land, observed the changing positions of stars in the heavens, and they have come to understand that the Earth cannot be flat. One of the men, Thomas, runs a gloved hand through his short, dark hair, his brow furrowed in thought. His companion William leans against a nearby wall, his arms crossed over his chest. Their discussion, though hushed, reveals their strong convictions. They are not afraid to voice their beliefs, even in a time when such ideas could be considered controversial. Their stance reflects the broader trend among medieval scholars who, despite prevailing misconceptions, often understood the Earth to be round. They base their convictions on direct observations of the world around them. They have seen ships disappear hull first over the horizon, their masts remaining visible longer than the rest of the vessel. They have watched how the sun and moon traverse the sky with apparent ease, never falling off the edge as some would expect of a flat world. They have even tracked the paths of shooting stars and comets, noting their curved trajectories that defy a flat plane. These men represent a significant portion of the medieval population who rejected the notion of a flat Earth. They are part of a wider, intellectual movement that challenged conventional beliefs and sought to understand the world through observation and reason. Their ideas may not always have been widely accepted, but they paved the way for future generations to embrace scientific thinking and challenge long-held misconceptions. They understood that the Earth was a sphere because their experiences and observations contradicted the idea of a flat world. And yet, despite this understanding, they continued to live their lives in ways that seemed consistent with a flat Earth. This apparent contradiction can be explained by the limitations of their time. They lacked the tools and knowledge to prove their beliefs definitively. For them, the Earth's shape was a matter of faith and intuition, informed by their experiences but not fully quantifiable. In their defense, it should be noted that they were not ignorant of the world. They had charted the course of their lives based on their understanding of it. They had navigated its challenges and triumphs, proving their ability to adapt and thrive. And so, we find ourselves in the presence of men who lived full and meaningful lives despite their beliefs in a spherical Earth. They serve as a reminder that the history of science is not a straightforward narrative of progress, but a complex tapestry of ideas, beliefs, and experiences. Their stories invite us to reconsider the common perception of medieval people as universally ignorant and superstitious, and instead recognize them as complex individuals capable of reason and observation. As we continue to explore the fascinating history of scientific thought, we must remember that every era has its complexities and that the medieval period was no exception. By understanding the nuances of medieval beliefs and experiences, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human history. So let us continue to delve into the past with an open mind, embracing the complexities and contradictions that made it so fascinating. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up to stay updated on our latest content. We've got plenty more videos and podcasts waiting for you to explore the world around you. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and keep exploring the endless wonders of our universe. Take care and goodbye. The Earth is round. We know this so well that we barely stop to consider how strange a notion it is. Any number of photographs could confirm this fact. A view from the International Space Station, a looping time-lapse of the sun setting over an ocean, even a picture of Earth's shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse. But let us set aside these modern conveniences. Let us instead imagine ourselves transported back to the late medieval period. More specifically, let us imagine ourselves standing in the quiet stone halls of a Dominican monastery in the 13th century. The walls are cool to the touch, made of pale limestone, their surfaces faintly scented with the lingering aroma of incense drifting from the chapel beyond. The air carries a calm stillness, broken only by the soft echoes of sandal feet upon the flagstones and the gentle rustle of robes as monks pass through archways, carrying books and scrolls to their studies. In a small chamber lined with wooden shelves, candles flicker in iron holders fixed to the walls. Their golden light glows upon the calm, focused face of a scholar seated at a narrow writing desk. His name is Thomas Aquinas. Picture him here. A large man with a broad, contemplative brow. His tonsured head is bent over parchment as he writes steadily with a quill pen dipped in dark iron-gall ink. The scent of ink mingles with beeswax and faint traces of the rushlight burning beside him. His script is precise and unhurried, each letter formed with practiced ease. Thomas Aquinas was born in 1225 in Roccaseca, a small hilltop village in the Kingdom of Sicily. Sent as a child to the Benedictine Abbey of Monte Cassino for his earliest education, he would spend his youth in the shadow of these ancient walls. Imagine him as a boy walking along the cloister walks, their stone floors cooled beneath his sandals, his eyes tracing the carved capitals of columns depicting vines, birds, and coiled beasts. Even then, his mind burned with quiet, steady curiosity. Later, Thomas studied at the University of Naples, where he first encountered the works of Aristotle in full. The concepts of natural philosophy and metaphysics ignited his methodical intellect. At 19, he joined the Dominican order, devoting his life to scholarship, contemplation and teaching. Years passed, leading him to the heights of scholastic theology, yet never dimming the wonder he first felt in those hallowed halls of Monte Cassino. Now picture him seated in a cold stone classroom in Paris. Before him sit attentive students gathered in the flickering light of rushed candles. Their wool robes rustle softly as they lean forward, their faces serious, illuminated in the pools of candlelight that dance upon pages of parchment filled with careful marginal notes. He speaks calmly, his voice resonant but unshawy, of the order of the universe, the harmony of creation, the movement of the spheres. This is the world of high medieval scholasticism, an age often misunderstood as one of blind faith and unthinking obedience. But within these hushed halls and flickering candle abbeys, real knowledge was being created, carefully documented and passed down through generations of eager minds. In this world of quiet contemplation and earnest study, Thomas Aquinas stands as a towering figure, the man who brought Aristotle to the West and wove faith and reason together like threads of silk in a tapestry. One of his most famous and important works, Summa Theologica, is a vast synthesis of Christian theology and Aristotelian philosophy. It became one of the most influential texts of the medieval period, shaping religious thought for centuries. This monumental work contains one of the most comprehensive accounts of the earth as a sphere. In support of this concept, Thomas weaves together scriptural passages, philosophical arguments, and observations of the natural world to create a web of understanding. One example of this synthesis can be found in his discussion of eclipse. As the moon passes between the earth and the sun, its round shadow is cast upon the face of the moon, a clear indication of the earth's spherical nature. This phenomenon, as Thomas explains, serves as a tangible proof of Earth's form, a confirmation not just of faith or dogma, but of observable reality. Another argument he presents is based on the experience of travelers, those who journey north. He writes, observe a gradual change in the constellations as they travel. This alteration in celestial perspective, he argues, would not occur if the Earth were a flat plane. Rather, it aligns perfectly with the idea of a spherical Earth there. In this fusion of faith and reason, Thomas shows us how medieval scholars did not shy away from the wonders of the physical world. They explored, observed, and understood in much the same way as modern scientists, but with a different set of tools and perspectives. As we continue our imagined journey through medieval Europe, we find Thomas in his later years, seated once more at his writing desk in the silent monastery at Fossin. Perhaps a chill wind moans outside, rattling the window panes, but within the room is a haven of warmth and focused energy. His broad shoulders, once so erect, now stoop slightly under the weight of his woolen robe, but his mind remains sharp, his eyes gleaming with intellectual fire as they trace the lines of his latest manuscript. Despite his failing health, his spirit remains unbroken, and as he dips his quill into ink, ready to add another layer of thought to his great work, we see a reflection of the medieval scholar in all his dedication and tenacity. It is easy to dismiss medieval scholars as figures shrouded in myth and dogma, removed from the modern world of scientific understanding. But Thomas's story invites us to reconsider. His life and work offer a glimpse into a world of quiet, dedicated scholarship, where the pursuit of knowledge was a path to deeper understanding. He lived in a time when faith and reason were not seen as mutually exclusive, but rather as complementary ways of understanding the world. For Thomas, the Earth's sphericity was not a matter of blind faith, but a conclusion drawn from careful observation and logical deduction. But let us step back from this imagined scene and consider what it is we have been witnessing. Firstly, we see a reflection of the broader historical context. Medieval Europe was not a monolithic entity, but a dynamic tapestry of cultures and intellectual traditions. Secondly, Thomas Aquinas emerges as a central figure, embodying the spirit of scholasticism with its emphasis on rational inquiry and systematic analysis. He demonstrates how medieval scholars, far from being unthinking adherents to dogma, engaged in rigorous intellectual pursuits. Finally, we encounter a challenge to preconceived notions about the medieval world. The image of a flat earth, often used to caricature medieval thought, does not align with the reality of the period. Scholars like Thomas Aquinas understood the earth's sphere, integrating this knowledge into their theological and philosophical frameworks. So what can we take away from this journey through time? Several key points stand out. The medieval period was a time of significant intellectual achievement, and figures like Thomas Aquinas played pivotal roles in shaping this legacy. Scholasticism, far from being a stagnant system of blind obedience, was a dynamic approach to learning that integrated faith and reason. And finally, the concept of a flat earth, often used to disparage medieval thought, does not accurately represent the actual beliefs and knowledge of the time. Now, my friends, it's your turn to engage with this topic further. What other aspects of medieval life or thought would you like me to explore in this series? Which historical figures or events should be brought to life through this immersive lens? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Together, we can keep these stories alive and ensure that history continues to captivate and inspire future generations. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey through time. Until next time, may your days be filled with sunshine and rainbows, and may your nights be filled with the quiet whispers of history. This is a history hot tip from a university. When you think of the Middle Ages, you might picture a time when people believed the earth was flat. But what if I told you that medieval scholars actually thought the earth was flat? In fact, they incorporated this understanding of our planet into a dynamic cosmos, complete with crystalline spheres. So join me as we explore how these thinkers envisioned the universe. Start by imagining yourself lying beneath a wide night sky in a quiet meadow just beyond the stone walls of a medieval town. The grass is cool beneath your back, faintly scented with earth and wild thyme. Above you, the sky stretches vast and dark, scattered with countless stars that glow softly like grains of white sand upon velvet cloth. This scene is your setting for exploring medieval views of the cosmos. Now let's add some context. Picture yourself in the 13th century. Scholars have access to classical texts from Greece and Rome that describe models of the universe. They also have their own observations of nature and the cosmos to draw on. And they're about to experience a scientific revolution thanks to figures like Roger Bacon and others. These developments set the stage for a shift in how medieval thinkers understand the world. Now let's bring in the key players. We'll start with the stars, the most obvious features of the night sky. Medieval scholars didn't believe the stars were actually attached to the underside of a dome-like firmament, as some earlier thinkers had proposed. Instead, they saw the stars as celestial bodies like the sun and moon, just much farther away. Now imagine the moon closest to the earth, glowing gently with its changing phases. Above it lies the sphere of Mercury, small and fleet in its motion, followed by Venus, casting her steady golden light at dawn or dusk. Each sphere is made of a pure, perfect substance, usually identified as crystal, and rotates flawlessly on its axis, always keeping the same face toward the earth. As you drift upward through this imagined universe, the spheres turn and shine with an otherworldly light. Next comes the sun. It's light, warm, and life-giving. Above that, Mars glows red with distant fire, followed by Jupiter shining large and pale, then Saturn, slow and dim at the edge of visible creation. Each planet moves in its own sphere, influencing the world below in various ways. The closer a planet is to the Earth, the more powerful its influence. Now, Saturn, so far from the Earth, has little power over earthly affairs. The spheres are arranged in order of their distance from the Earth. The planets move differently, too. Some, like Venus, appear to move backward compared to the stars, a phenomenon explained by the heliocentric model of the solar system. Finally, beyond Saturn lies the sphere of the fixed stars. Imagine it as a dark crystalline expanse upon which the constellations are set like tiny gems, unmoving relative to each other. As you pass through this sphere, notice how everything seems perfectly still. It's a realm of unchanging stability, different from the turning spheres below. What does this tell us about medieval views of the universe? Well, first, it shows a geocentric perspective. The Earth is at the center, and everything revolves around it. This reflects a common medieval assumption about humanity's importance in creation. Remember, medieval thinkers often believed that humans were the pinnacle of God's creation. Second, the model demonstrates an understanding of planetary motion. Medieval scholars realized that the planets moved in circular paths, though they sometimes differed on whether these paths were perfectly circular or slightly elliptical. Third, the idea of crystalline spheres showcases a desire for simplicity and order. These perfect, unchanging spheres resonated with medieval ideas about divine craftsmanship and cosmic harmony. But wait, there's more. The cosmos wasn't just a series of spheres. Each sphere had its own music, and an audible harmony known as the Musica Universalis, the music of the spheres. This music infused the world with balance and order, shaping not only the heavens but the destinies and temperaments of humankind below. Each motion, each star, each sphere held its place within a grand, unchanging design, a design in which the Earth's sphericity was simply one accepted truth among many. So why do we think medieval people believed the Earth was flat? Well, it might have something to do with the way we remember history. Often when we think of medieval views on the Earth, we focus on the work of theologians like Thomas Aquinas, who argued that the Earth was the center of a divinely created universe. However, the story doesn't end there. There were also natural philosophers who used reason to study the natural world, and some of these scholars, like John of Hollywood, presented detailed arguments for a spherical Earth based on both scripture and observation. In fact, John went even further. He used mathematical calculations to determine the Earth's circumference, showing that he understood the globe as a sphere. Medieval views on the cosmos weren't static. They evolved over time and varied across regions. In places like England, France, and Italy, scholars built on classical knowledge, developing sophisticated astronomical instruments like astrolabes to measure the positions of stars. They also made significant strides in understanding planetary motion. Thinkers like Albertus Magnus and his student, the aforementioned Thomas Aquinas, incorporated these new ideas into their views of the universe. For example, they revised older Aristotelian ideas about planetary motion to account for the heliocentric model of the solar system. But hold on a moment. Do you want stories about a flat Earth undermine the idea that medieval scholars understood the Earth as a sphere? Well, yes, but also no. You see, the stories we tell ourselves about a flat Earth can reflect a misunderstanding of medieval intellectual history. Sometimes they arise from anti-religious sentiment, portraying medieval thinkers as ignorant and superstitious. Other times they stem from a lack of historical context. People who repeat these stories might not realize that they erase the contributions of many brilliant medieval scholars. As you wrap up your journey through the medieval cosmos, pause to appreciate the insights of these remarkable individuals. They saw the Earth as a sphere embedded in a crystalline firmament filled with music, spheres, and wonders. While their views may differ from modern scientific understanding, they offer a rich tapestry of faith, philosophy, and wonder that continues to captivate us today. Consider how their belief in an ordered universe shaped their view of humanity's place within creation. Two medieval thinkers, the Earth, along with all its inhabitants, was at the center of a grand design, carefully balanced and harmonious. And finally, think about how medieval views of the cosmos continue to influence our world today. From the paintings of Renaissance artists to the writings of early modern scientists, the legacy of these ideas is profound. By exploring the medieval cosmos, we gain a deeper appreciation for the evolution of human thought and the enduring power of our quest to understand the universe. If you want to know more about medieval science and technology, check out the playlist linked below. Special thanks to my supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you'd like to support this channel, you can give a super thanks or join my membership program. The link to that is in the description below. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. Remember to keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep thinking like a historian. Until next time. The year is 1376. You stand in the great hall of a medieval castle at dawn. The tall stained glass windows filtered the early light into gentle hues of gold, rose, and deep blue, casting quiet patterns across stone floors lined with woven rush mats. The hall is hushed, filled only with the muted rustle of servants preparing for the day, tending to the embers in the hearth, polishing carved wooden chairs, and carrying copper basins of water for washing. At the high table, a nobleman sits in a heavy oak chair. His velvet robe is lined with fur to ward off the morning chill. He leans forward, gazing at a manuscript held open by a quiet clerk standing beside him. The pages are illuminated with delicate gold leaf depicting the Earth as a sphere surrounded by concentric circles of stars and planets. The clerk reads softly in Latin, his voice low and steady, while the nobleman listens, his expression calm and contemplative. Now, depending on what time you're watching this, it might be night where you are. So let's adjust our scene just slightly. Rather than the dawn, let's set it at dusk. Let's remove the sound of birds from the hall, and instead, let's fill it with the crackle of a blacksmith's hammer upon hot iron. We'll also add the murmur of laborers' voices as they describe the day's work repairing the castle. As still, the nobleman remains focused on the text before him. He takes a quill, dipped in black ink, and traces the outline of a constellation. So far, we have created two very distinct scenarios, both taking place in the late Middle Ages, and yet there is a stark contrast between them. In one, we hear the sounds of refinement, the rustle of servants going about their duties, and the quiet rustle of pages turning. The other is full of the clamor of manual labor, the clatter of tools, and the murmurs of workers. Despite these differences, however, both of these scenes take place at the same time and in the same place, demonstrating that despite the perception of the time period being a monolithic era of ignorance, Middle Ages were actually an extremely dynamic and complex time. It's easy to fall into the trap of viewing history as a series of straight lines. Modern viewers often consider the Middle Ages as a monolithic period of darkness sandwiched between the glories of antiquity and the Renaissance. This perception is further reinforced by the popular notion that people in the Middle Ages believed the Earth was flat. The image of a medieval peasant holding this belief is often used to portray the supposed lack of scientific understanding during this time period. But this stereotype doesn't align with historical reality. And to understand why, we need to explore the context of medieval life. The late Middle Ages was a period of immense intellectual activity and innovation. The works of ancient Greek and Roman philosophers were preserved and studied in monasteries and universities, laying the foundation for the Renaissance. During this time, scholars made significant advances in fields like astronomy, mathematics, and medicine, often building upon the knowledge of their classical predecessors. Think back to the nobleman in the Great Hall, absorbed in a text detailing the structure of the universe. Such manuscripts were not rare. They were commonplace in the halls of learning and the homes of the elite. So when we consider the idea that medieval people believed the Earth was flat, we must ask, which medieval people? What did these beliefs look like in practice? Did they shape the everyday lives of those living in medieval Europe? Well, first of all, it's important to note that many medieval scholars did indeed understand that the Earth was a sphere. Figures like Thomas Aquinas, who helped establish the medieval university system, accepted the heliocentric model of the universe. This view was rooted in the works of classical thinkers like Aristotle and Ptolemy, whose ideas were studied and refined by Christian scholars throughout the Middle Ages. Many medieval scientists had a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. They knew that the Earth was a sphere embedded in a series of concentric circles or spheres, each containing a different celestial body, including the moon, planets, and stars. These models, though geocentric rather than heliocentric, were surprisingly accurate in explaining astronomical phenomena. They developed complex instruments to measure aspects of the natural world, such as the astrolabe for measuring time based on the position of stars. These devices were not only used for scientific study, but also found their way into everyday life, helping farmers predict planting times and merchants navigate trade routes. But even among those who may not have had access to such instruments or texts, the idea of a flat Earth would have been perplexing. Why? Because medieval people didn't actually experience their world in a vacuum. They didn't exist in a bubble cut off from outside influences or ideas. Instead, their understanding of the world was shaped by the people they interacted with, the information they exchanged, and the experiences they shared. For example, imagine a merchant traveling along well-worn trade routes connecting Italian city-states to those in northern Europe. As he journeys, he meets fellow merchants, some from distant lands, who share tales of their travels. He hears about the strange sights seen when sailing south, how the familiar constellations disappear and unfamiliar ones take their place. He learns how ships disappear hull first over the horizon, not simply vanishing from sight but gradually sinking out of view until only the sails remain, then disappearing entirely. If asked, would this merchant believe that the Earth was flat, it seems highly unlikely. His experiences on the road, the information he gathers from his fellow travelers, and his own observations would all point to the Earth being flat. Let's now shift our focus to the realm of faith, another aspect of medieval life that challenges the flat Earth stereotype. For many people today, this medieval period is synonymous with superstition and religious dogma. However, it's essential to remember that medieval people, like people today, held a wide range of beliefs and levels of piety. While some may have been deeply immersed in religious life, others may have been more focused on their daily pursuits or skeptical of religious teachings. Consider, for instance, a chaplain weaving religious messages with astronomical truths for a lady of the court as she works on a tapestry. Chaplains, as the name suggests, were often present in the courts of nobles, providing spiritual guidance and counsel. They were expected to be well versed in theology and scripture, but also to be familiar with contemporary intellectual discussions. So would this chaplain be teaching the lady of the court that the Earth was flat? Again, the answer is a resounding probably not. Medieval theologians grappled with reconciling biblical accounts with astronomical observations. Some argued that the creation story in Genesis should be interpreted allegorically or metaphorically, while others saw the work of creating the Earth as extending beyond the initial 6 days described in the text. Many also understood that the Earth's shape was consistent with the idea of creation or creation out of nothing, as a spherical Earth could be seen as emerging fully formed from the void. In fact, some theologians used the Earth's shape as an argument for the existence of a divine creator. A flat Earth would not have been considered in this context, as it would imply a limitation in God's creative power. The idea of a flat Earth was not a widely held belief in the Middle Ages, and it's inaccurate to characterize the entire medieval period as ignorant or scientifically backward. In reality, the medieval world was much more nuanced. Its people were not solely defined by their religious beliefs or lack thereof, but were instead multifaceted individuals navigating a complex world with all its wonders and complexities. Their understanding of science, geography, and the natural world was shaped by a combination of religious teachings, classical knowledge, and direct experience. So next time you come across someone suggesting that medieval people believed the Earth was flat, remember the complexity of medieval life. Think of the merchants trading along Mediterranean, the astronomers mapping the heavens, and the theologians seeking to reconcile faith with the wonders of the natural world. Their experiences and beliefs were as varied as the landscapes they inhabited, challenging the notion of a monolithic medieval period defined by ignorance. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new. As the last embers of daylight fade and the first stars begin their silent vigil, let us step away from the bustling market squares and the soaring cathedrals of medieval life. For tonight, our journey is inward. Let us leave behind the clatter of blacksmiths' hammers and the rumble of farm cars. Let the gentle murmur of evening replace the din of the day. As shadows lengthen and the air grows still, let us seek solace in the quiet embrace of your own bed. Feel the comforting weight of your blankets as you sink into the mattress. Let the gentle pressure soothe your muscles, easing the day's weariness from your limbs. Rest your head upon your pillow and let its softness cradle your face. Close your eyes and imagine the starry expanse above you mirrored in the depths of your own being. For tonight, we challenge a notion that has shadowed the Middle Ages, the myth of a flat Earth. As we unravel this misconception, we discover a medieval world that was anything but ignorant. In the hushed tones of monastic libraries, amidst the celestial tapestries adorning their walls, monks and scholars contemplated the very shape of the cosmos. With patient precision, they traced the paths of celestial bodies, charting their movements to understand the rhythms of the heavens. Their illuminated manuscripts, with their gold-leaf stars set against deep indigo skies, were not merely decorative, but served as silent witnesses to the truth. Theirs was a world illuminated by candlelight and starlight, where knowledge flowed like honey from a honeycomb and time unfolded with the patient grace of a sundial. Each breath you take, let it be a reminder of the countless scholars who breathed life into the written word, breathing knowledge into existence. And just as the stars wheeled across the firmament, so too did these scholars wheel their ideas, their thoughts and theories interweaving to form a rich tapestry of learning. And now, as the night deepens, so does our journey into the heart of medieval wisdom. Let your gaze drift to the soft glow of the bedside lamp, its gentle light chasing away the darkest shadows. For within these depths lies the strength of the human spirit, the unyielding quest for knowledge and understanding. And as you surrender to the embrace of sleep, let these words resonate within you. Even in the stillness of the night, even when the world seems shrouded in darkness, there exists a wellspring of knowledge waiting to be tapped, a universe brimming with wonders waiting to be explored. You are not merely a spectator in this grand drama of existence. You are a co-creator, an explorer, a seeker of truth, and within you lies the potential to unlock the mysteries of the cosmos, to navigate the labyrinthine passages of time, and to find your way back to the eternal wisdom that has always been your birthright.